A recent survey by Lightstone Property Group showed that single women are buying more properties than couples and single men, and have been doing so in Gauteng and the Eastern Cape since around 2016. For more on women in the property sector, I'm joined by Sandi Mbutuma, the Chairperson of a Women's Property Network and MD of Azzaro Surveyors. Thanks so much for joining us on SABC News. Is this an accurate picture of what the property sector looks like for women in South Africa?
Thank you, Nzinga, for having me on your seat. Yes, it is. To a certain extent, women are currently making strides in the sector, but it's still very slow growth in comparison to the size that the sector is right now, which is 5.8 trillion. So if I have to relatively put it into figures, we're sitting at voting rights and economic participation is about 7% relatively.
That seems quite low. How do you then transform that industry and make sure that you're seeing more people like Nosphiwe Balfour, who is the CEO of a multi-billion rand property fund that's listed on the JSE?
Absolutely. The recent report, the Transformation Sector Report, it clearly depicts that we have to start now finding manners of actually unlocking ways of access to debt funding. And also just including women as property owners. I think most importantly, we need to increase the pool of intellectual capital of women in the sector by focusing on the new entrants and also developing structures for academic curricula to be appropriate.
So what are the challenges facing those measures that you've just spoken about?
It's a financial burden of the previously disadvantaged that don't have the balance sheet, and which is understandably because they've never been the players in the industry by virtue of being new players. Commercial landlords, we don't have any women, especially black women, but those are structures that we as a sector we're currently working on to ensure that there's a collaboration with the financial institutions to ensure that we find programs or platforms to have new entrants.
Where are you seeing women participating the most in the property sector, whether it's ownership, whether it's buying property or ownership of actual companies?
Consumer spending, yes, but currently what we're seeing is we have a pool of professionals that are sitting at junior management. And it then speaks to the skills development because by virtue of having a lot of junior managers, we lack actually skills development programs to accelerate their growth to middle management and seeing them in the management control and executive levels.
Mm-hmm. So what did you advise someone who's watching and maybe wants to get into the property sector in a serious way and transform it so we're not just seeing that 7% playing in that multi-billion rand industry?
Absolutely.
What do they do?
It's imperative to actually acquaint themselves with the different, there's so many platforms to play in the sector, from being actually a leasing agent. We see in a lot of shopping centers that we grew up in, we didn't know that they were actually shopping managers. There's also tenant fit out contractors. We've got grass cutting companies. So there's goods and services and also suppliers that where women can actually just immerse themselves with the array of services that they can play in.
You celebrate women in property. Tell us a little bit about that as we leave.
SA Women in Property Awards is in its 4th year. It's a platform to recognize the women that have made strides in the industry. We celebrate the excellence and the hard work, and also just to ensure that even though we're struggling, we highlight the companies that actually support the transformation agenda.
Thanks so much for your time, Sandi Mbutuma, the Chairperson of Women's Property Network and MD of Azzaro Surveyors. That's a wrap from us for now.